Welcome to All In, your weekly live show dedicated to helping athletes optimize every aspect of their performance. I'm Coach Chuck, and I'm joined with my co-host, Coach Brian. Hey, Brian.
How's it going, Chuck? How you doing?
Doing well, you?
Doing well, thank you.
All right. So now, before we jump in, a quick reminder. We'll be here every Thursday night at about 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so mark your calendars. Next week, we're going to talk about building base, your aerobic endurance. And do us a favor, if you actually like this show, hit the like button, tell the YouTube algorithm that we're actually worth watching. So without further ado, let's dive into the most overlooked aspect of athletic performance, sleep. What say you, Brian?
Yeah. Well, sleep is one of those things that is absolutely going to be critical for maximizing performance. Lack of sleep, insufficient sleep, it screws with your metabolism. It screws with your endocrine system. It screws with, your cognitive function, your reaction time, perceived exertion. I've seen studies that indicate that there's up to a 20% reduction in performance, depending on how, what you're doing and how that's being measured. But it's a significant measurable decrease in performance when you're sleep deprived. So I'd say it's fairly important.
So tonight there's a couple books that I've read that I think that is worth sharing. One of them is Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walkers. The other one is Peak by Dr. Bubbs. Both of those have some great chapters of sleep. So if anybody wants to check those books out, they'll be in the description. And, I think the first thing that we ought to kind of chat about is just the concept of what really, happens during a sleep cycle. I mean, we all are now wearing these wearables and Oura rings, and you've got WHOOP and so forth. And what's the data telling us? So the first one is, I mean, you and I've talked about this quite a bit about the skill sets of cycling. Decision making, what you have to do.
Right.
We've talked about strength training as far as being able to how much weight can you move, and then the overall just aerobic fitness. And I think that a lot of athletes don't realize how much sleep is tied to that. So I know you looked at a couple of studies. Did you look at any of them that talk about kind of like REM sleep?
Yeah. Everything I've looked at has talked about REM sleep and the benefits of making sure that you're getting adequate REM, so you can actually repair all those all that muscle damage from the gym and from the training and basically integral part of recovery, as well as multiple other things, right? So you're looking at insulin production. You're looking at, just basic health benefits from it, as well as mental health benefits as well. It's pretty significant.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting, and I didn't really know well, I guess I kind of knew it, but I didn't really know it until I dove into the literature. And when, sorry about that, when they were talking about REM, one of the things that was the most is that's the point in time in which those things that you've learned gets like implanted in the brain.
Yeah.
That, we talk about from a track cycling perspective, and you're trying to learn different techniques, and you're kind of watching the field, you're knowing what's going on. Those things are actually those observations and those activities during the day. That's when it really gets implanted into the brain, is during that REM sleep.
Filed away on the web. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I guess that's a better way of talking about it.
Go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to, expand on that a little bit. The track cycling, any sort of cycling, aside from time trialing, I suppose, you have to learn to read races. You have to be able to make certain reactions, in a split second. You have to be able to read terrain. You have to be able to do all of these things that really have, that REM sleep has an integral part of, right? So you file those things you learn away, and then with the increased reaction time, or with the decreased reaction time of getting a good night's sleep, you're able to pull them out and respond to them in a fashion that is quick enough to make it worthwhile as well.
Right. And then when you get into that deep sleep, that's the point in time which your body starts to repair muscle and that
Sure.
you've done there.
Yep.
And what I think is interesting is when you think about the average American gets less than 6 hours of sleep a night. And that means that there's that minimal amount of time to actually do that REM and that deep sleep. So I know what I read, but from what you read, how many hours a night should a cyclist, or should an athlete who's trying to perform get?
Well, so one of the studies that stuck out for me referenced both the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, and the NCAA in their studies, and both of them recommend at least 7 hours of sleep uh, for adult athletes per night.
I saw the same thing. It's 7 to 9, and then I saw one study that talked about when you're in a week of competition, or like a heavy load week, that goes up to 9+ hours.
Okay.
And I thought that was crazy. So
Yeah.
so here we go into we talk about periodization all the time, and we're talking about going into week 3, which is the hardest of your 4 weeks,
Mhm.
and possibly, I mean, if you're doing like that type of stuff.
4 week cycle, sure.
Yeah, with a 4-week macro cycle. And they're talking about you need to, so you're not only trying to plan for a larger volume possibly, but then you're also trying to plan for an increased amount of sleep.
Sure. 28, 29 hours out of the day is perfect, right? So
Right. So you've got this crazy amount of time that you're trying to, be on the bike, whatever. And then simultaneously you're talking about still trying to get 9 hours of sleep.
yeah.
To me, I thought that was a very interesting one.
Well, it's very interesting, and it's obviously very challenging. With an unfortunately 24-hour day, it's a lot of stuff to cram into. In those heavy days too, you're not sleeping as well. The studies I was reading, indicate that athletes have a tendency to underperform in their sleep compared to non-athletes anyway. So we're already in a hole, according to the research, and now we're putting ourselves into a bigger hole by simply working harder than we worked the previous week.
So to kind of wrap up the science of it, we know that, if you increase your sleep, you can have better endurance, you're going to reduce your risk of injury, and you're going to have faster recovery. So we know that. Now you just pulled us into what's the challenges.
Well, the challenges are finding enough time in the day, and I think one of the common themes we tend to harp on while we're having these conversations is time management, right? Being disciplined, being focused, going, okay, I have to send the kids off to school at 7 o'clock in the morning, which means I need to get up at 6 in the morning and fuel for the day. Get the kids ready, however your schedule works out, but it's got to be boom, 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 right? If you lollygag around and aren't disciplined about it, you're behind the 8 ball in something, whether it's nutrition, fitness, strength, mental acuity, or sleep. So so finding that and one of the things that I got out of this was the importance of having a consistent sleep schedule. Your sleep schedule and my sleep schedule are two completely different things. Our circadian rhythms are not the same. For those of you that don't know it, Chuck gets up at some ungodly, unfortunate hour in the morning to be able to fulfill his day. I'm not quite there. So I tend to stay up a little bit later, get up a little bit later. Chuck tends to get up ridiculously obscene. I don't know if I've mentioned obscene hour, but and then go to bed, at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's not quite that bad. It's close, but not that
It's
bad.
pretty close.
Yeah. Well, so I guess it kind of talks about when we talk about early training sessions. It became obvious to me very quickly that if you are doing those early training sessions, that you want training sessions that really are more on the, we talk about in the military, smart ranger or strong ranger.
Mhm.
You want to have more on the strong ranger side of the house because you're not having to go through the cognitive movements. You're not trying to learn things. I mean, it's just a matter of what type of activities can you do that do not require a big cognitive lift.
Right.
And then, we haven't even talked about the way that, sleep's disrupted during travel. And then we talk about race day nerves and how the night before, some people can't sleep because of that. And if you think about it, it's crazy. If you think about that, there was a study done, it would talk about time trialists and I forget, like a 2-hour difference in their sleep patterns at night prior to an event had a significant impact on their power production on the 40K TT. Thought that was interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So, disruptors of sleep. What do you think?
Well, let's start with our ubiquitous phones.
Yeah.
Everybody, let's put the phone away. Read a book. Do something where you're not staring at a blue screen. Basically, that's going to, prevent you from actually falling asleep. Caffeine in the afternoons.
Yeah. See, I've got an app called Rise, and because of my early bedtime, it prompts me about 9 a.m. No more caffeine after 9 a.m.
Oh, good grief! I wouldn't survive. I'm sitting here with about a third of a cup of coffee left at 4 p.m. local time for me. So I'm already in trouble today. I'm not setting a good example today.
So we know caffeine. We know blue screens. We mentioned that.
Yep.
We know alcohol also
Yeah.
can have a disruption. Basically, what happens with alcohol in the middle of the night, your liver is producing insulin in order to try to metabolize the alcohol and just raising up your body temperature. And as your body temperature goes up, it disrupts your sleep. And then you mentioned earlier overtraining. Now, I don't like that term because we should always be overreaching. So I think a better term is, even though the literature says overtraining, I think what they're really talking about is overreaching. So it's which is something we know we're always aiming to do to make sure that we're getting that muscle adaptation. So we know that at least 1 week during a normal phase that you're going to have poorer sleep because you are overreaching, but then that's probably the reason why you should probably have another hour of sleep, because that helps fix the overreaching problem.
Right. It's a vicious circle.
What's that?
I said it's a vicious circle.
It is. And then we now have wearables. So we actually, what's funny, I think we kind of talked about this last time, that we'll have an athlete whose heart rate strap battery dies, and it's almost like they abandon the workout because I don't have my heart rate stuff. And then they kind of separate their nutrition from that. And now we're trying to throw in here saying, well, look, your sleep is part of the rest. So, when we talk about all 5 pillars, sleep being part of core, which is your athlete health, it's just as important having a wearable, whether it's a WHOOP like you or an Oura like me, it is to have a power meter on your bike.
Yep.
Because
Absolutely.
you should be looking at, what is my total amount of sleep? Am I getting my 7 to 9 hours? What is my sleep quality? Am I going into deep sleep? Am I getting REM sleep? If I'm not, why not? So I think it's a plug to why we need to have that type of stuff almost as important.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree that that a wearable and some of the information that you can glean out of that is every bit as important as how much power, what your average power was, your normalized power on a 2-hour ride, right? And I in fact, with something like a 2-hour ride, in the track world, I could care less what your normalized power really. I mean, I'm not terribly concerned about it, right? And I would say monitoring that sleep and monitoring those functions would be far more important comparatively to what your power meter is telling you on a steady state, zone 2 ride.
All right. So, given that I am one of your athletes, and
Looking good, son.
my day has completely gone to crap because of the kids and stuff like that, and it's 10 o'clock at night, and I still have a hour and a half workout. What say thee?
You're setting me up with a loaded question here.
I've already done my workout for today, so this is so let me rephrase the question. So
strictly theoretical.
Strictly theoretical. I have a 6 o'clock show that I'm doing, and I haven't quite got my workout in yet. When I get home at 7, and I'm supposed to go to bed at 7:15, what do I do? No.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, this is actually one of those questions that I get quite a bit, or I'll have an athlete who will make a comment to me. He's like, "Oh yeah, my workout, I didn't feel great last night. I didn't get on the bike until 10:30 p.m."
Okay.
So what do you think?
Again, very loaded question. I think it would depend. If my athlete said I didn't get on the bike until 10:30, my first response I think would be, "What the hell were you doing for?" I mean, I have 2 children. They grew up. They were at times difficult. You know what? By 10:30, if it's taken by 10:30, the house better be on fire at that point. I think first of all, it'd be like, you really need to fix your time management if you're not getting on the bike until 10:30, if that's a priority to you, right? This is this whole concept we're trying to create here is all about being the best athlete we can be, in the terms of our conversation, which means that we have to be focused, we have to be disciplined, we have to be, we have to manage time. We got a lot of things on a plate to juggle around, including sleep, including, family time, work, everything else. So that would be the first thing. The second thing I would say is, depending on what the workout is, maybe we get half a workout so you can kind of compromise a little bit, although I'm not a big fan of compromise either, but be able to at least get some work and not put yourself into a hole in the sleep. But I think really what it comes down to more than anything else, if it's a habit, if it's a continuous problem, then you've got some time management issues. If it's a day and it's an insignificant workout in an insignificant period of time that, isn't 3 weeks before national championships or something, get the sleep, and then we move on, not completely tanked in the morning. And I think I would lean that way. What say you?
So from my perspective, the one-offs, kind of regardless of when they are, if it's a one-off, you get to sleep. Because I guess from my view, doing it 3 weeks before nationals, I'd rather them get the sleep. However, if we're talking like the second time in 1 week, then it's just a matter of, okay, let's have a discussion about your priorities.
Right.
Or about my programming, which is the problem? Is it my programming is too much for you on your schedule, or is your prioritization different now than when we had that initial discussion?
And that's a valid question. And, if we take the 3 week out scenario and yeah, sleep, I mean, there's a laundry list of things that, insufficient sleep is going to do to your performance. Right. So if we can avoid that, that's probably ideal. If it's, if it's 3 weeks out from nationals in that scenario, I think it's based on the conversation you have with the athlete and the goal setting you have with the athlete and the objectives, then I think it's, you need to figure out, yeah, exactly. You need to figure out what your priorities are, because we're 3 weeks out from nationals and this is what you need to be doing to prepare for, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I'm willing.
I agree. I mean, please don't get me wrong. I wasn't kind of arguing back for on that. I was just, because I agree with you. It's like, look, you're 3 weeks out from nationals. You've already bought a plane ticket out to Colorado Springs or down to, or if you're doing cyclocross, if you bought it out to Fayetteville, Fayetteville, Arkansas. At that point in time, you ought to be all in.
Right.
And your schedule should be that way. But I thought that was kind of an interesting one. I didn't know which side of the fence we would both fall upon.
Well, and I was kind of curious as to your answer as well, because it's a bit of a tricky question, right? I think all of the questions we've asked have been tricky questions on this one, because nobody gets enough sleep, or at least according to the studies I've read, none of us athletes get enough sleep. We don't get enough recovery because of it, and it's leaving things on the table at that point. And sleep is really the easiest thing to do. I mean, it's a lot easier for me to sleep an extra hour than it is to, go into the gym and pick heavy things up. So
yeah, that's it. I mean, tonight, do I go to bed or hop on the watt bike? Bed seems so much easier.
It sounds so much better than that, right?
But I will tell you that, and we mentioned it last week on the nutrition show, is that where I do a lot of the DEXA scans and so forth on not just athletes, but other people, it's obvious that when they have poor sleep, I ask them and they're like, oh yeah, I just sleep like crap. And I've got sleep apnea, blah, blah, blah. And they get a lot of visceral adipose tissue, fat around the organs, because in the middle of the night, cortisol spikes. When the cortisol spikes, the liver produces insulin. It opens up the fat storage cells, bam, and they get fat in around the organs. So I think there's such a ton amount of information as far as how sleep affects your nutrition, how sleep affects your body composition, how it affects your performance, and how it's one of those things that's actually easy for us to manage, and we just don't. We just opt not to. So we got about 7 more minutes, and I think that one thing we should walk away with is some practical strategies to assist them. And you hinted on it earlier, and it's like my number one that I tell people. And I tell them, anchor what time you wake up. And the reason why I say that is we can always, always, always control what time we wake up in the morning. For the most part, I'm not talking about if you set your alarm clock for 5 and you wake up at 4:15. I'm talking about in general, you can set an alarm clock and you can say, I'm going to get up at this time. We cannot control, as much as we think we can, we can't control what time we go to bed. There's always something. Kids' soccer team or soccer game, family, late from work, whatever. But first one is...
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No,
I was just going to say, and we certainly can't control how much sleep we're actually getting once we fall asleep, right? Train goes by, some weird bump in the night that wakes you up. It's hot, it's cold, it's,
you're in your upper 50s and you've got to go to the bathroom 8 times.
Exactly. Right. We can all go, okay, I'm hitting the pillow at 9 p.m.
Yep.
And that doesn't really mean a lot, but we can establish, okay, if I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock, then I'm doing some quick math in my head, then I'm going to get up at 5 or 6 in the morning and make sure that I get my 8 or 9 hours of sleep.
Yeah. So from my perspective, what you do is you decide, okay, like for instance, Dan and I do, we get up at 3:45, And that's what time we get up Monday through Sunday. It doesn't change.
Right.
We anchor that because our body, our body doesn't really know if it's a weekend. We don't know if it's a, it's just your circadian sleep cycle, like you talked about earlier. There's no dimming thing that says, oh, it's a weekend, so we're not going to, we're not going to do that. So anchor that wake up time. Then, as you just alluded to, what is your end of the evening routine? What are the things that you're doing? How are you setting a time and then spinning down, not looking at the phone, reading a book, some of the stuff that you mentioned?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's that's a good way to put it, is that spinning down process, right? We're all busy. We've all got 1,000 things on our mind. I've my big issue with sleep personally is, I will lay down, do all the things I'm supposed to do, have the room at the right temperature, go to bed consistently, all of those things, and my brain will start spinning.
Right.
And there's times when I can't get it to stop spinning.
So my recommendation for that
Mm.
is have a chair that's in your room close to
Okay.
your bed and a book. Get up, go to the chair, start to read.
Okay.
And then it changes what you're thinking about. Yeah, don't pick up a book that's exactly what you're thinking about. Yeah, if you're thinking you're Reacher and you're going into a bar and you're going to kick some ass, don't go over and pick up one of Chowder's books and start reading it.
Probably not the best reading material. Yeah.
Right. But what they typically say is don't just lay there in bed and just stay in that cycle. Get out of that cycle, go sit down, start to read. You'll get tired again, then go back and get back in bed and go sleep.
And that's good information because it's counterintuitive, right? It's like, to go to sleep, I'm going to get up and proceed in an activity that doesn't involve sleeping. Having that information is pretty significant, because the first thing I want to do when I'm trying to go to sleep is hold as still as possible and try to shut my brain off and do all of those things that I think are reasonably common, as opposed to, I'm going to get up, physically get up, get out of bed, sit in a chair, pick up a book. But it makes sense.
My grandmother told me this years ago. She goes, when you're laying in bed and you can't go to sleep, little Charles, because that's what she called me. She goes, you think about your feet and you're like, feet, go to sleep. Ankle, go to sleep. Shins, go to sleep. Knees, go to sleep. And you work yourself all the way up to the top of your head, and then you'll go to sleep. Well, what's kind of funny is after I'd gone through anatomy class, of course, I went through and actually gastroc, go to sleep, It's amazing how it actually breaks that cycle. And Brian, I kid you not, there have been mornings I've woke up and I'm like, I got to my elbows. All I got to was my tricep. It's just another one of those little tricks.
Sure.
Another good one is, if you wake up and you have to go to the bathroom, get up and go to the bathroom, because what will not happen is you will not go back to sleep thinking, I don't have to go to the bathroom, because 10 minutes later you'll wake back up because you still have to go to the bathroom. That's why you woke up.
That bladder sended signals. Yeah.
It did. So just get up and go. Nutrition wise, I'll tell you that one of the things that you always should avoid is any type of really heavy meals, because as soon as the meals get into your stomach, your body is going to start to digest that. And as your body is working through that process of digesting that food, your body temperature actually increases. And when your body temperature increases, you get disrupted sleep. We mentioned the alcohol. We mentioned the caffeine. We've mentioned, I know one we didn't talk about, and we've got about a minute. Saw an interesting study that said that sleep debt, there's no way, so you can't catch up on the sleep on the weekend. So if you're in a sleep debt, let's say you're in a 2-hour sleep debt, you can't catch it up on the weekend. However, what they have shown is that taking short naps will actually help that sleep deficit.
I saw
And
that one as well. Fascinating. Yeah.
yeah, and especially said on if you're doing like a heavy day, so you're doing heavy lifting in the morning and you're going to do a hard watt bike in the afternoon or a long ride in the afternoon, is taking that little nap in between actually helps to remove some of that sleep debt and increases your performance. I thought that was fascinating and
Yeah.
a really good tip for people.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, that was a good
So
one. You know, and then just the fact that you can't, don't assume that I'm going to sleep in on the weekends and I'm going to catch up, because that's not going to happen.
you can't.
You're just in a hole.
So
That was all I
any
had.
closing thoughts?
Nope. Just try to get as much sleep as possible. It's a very important, very valuable thing for performance in all aspects of life.
Well, so that puts us at just about 30 minutes, 31 minutes. So thanks to everybody who watched. Don't forget to hit that like button. Also, all the studies we've talked about will be in the description. There will also be a couple of affiliate links for the Why We Sleep and Peak if you're interested in those books. And next week we'll be back on. We'll be talking about building base, the foundation of your cycling year.
Sounds like a fun one.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later. Have a great one.
Take care, guys.